For centuries, the legendary battle between Iran and Turan has shaped myths, history, and identities across Persia and Central Asia. But who were these two great powers? Were they real historical nations or just symbols of an ancient conflict? Iran represents the land of the early Indo-Iranians, the ancestors of the Persians and Medes. Their civilization flourished in what is now Iran, Afghanistan, and parts of the Caucasus. With their rich history, from the Achaemenid Empire to the Sassanids, they played a central role in shaping the ancient world. On the other side was Turan, a mysterious land mentioned in Persian epics. But who were the Turanians? Some believe they were Indo-Iranian nomads like the Sakas and Scythians, who roamed the Eurasian steppe, stretching from the Caspian Sea to Mongolia. Others argue they were early Turkic and Mongolic tribes who later clashed with the Persian world. This wasn't just a war between two peoples, it was a clash of civilizations. Iran, with its great cities and empires, stood for order and culture, while Turan, with its fierce warriors and vast grasslands, symbolized the untamed power of the nomads. From the pages of the Shahnameh, Persia's great epic, to historical conflicts between Persian kings and steppe warriors, the struggle between Iran and Turan is one of the most enduring rivalries of the ancient world. But what is myth, and what is history? Welcome to Lost Origins. Let's trace our roots.
To understand the Iran-Turan conflict, we must first look at the people of Iran, who they were, where they came from, and how they built one of the greatest civilizations in history. The Iranians were part of the Indo-Iranian branch of the Indo-European family. Around 2000 BC, they migrated from the Eurasian steppes into Iran, Afghanistan, and parts of Central Asia. These early Iranians split into different groups, giving rise to famous civilizations like the Medes, Persians, and Parthians. Before they built powerful empires, early Iranians settled in regions like Bactria, modern Afghanistan, Margiana, Turkmenistan, and the Iranian plateau. These lands became centers of early Iranian culture, religion, and trade. One of the most defining aspects of early Iranian culture was Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest religions. The sacred text of this religion, the Avesta, mentions conflicts between Iranians and a rival people, possibly the Turanians. This suggests that the Iran-Turan struggle was not just a military conflict but also a cultural and religious divide. By the 6th century BC, the Iranians, particularly the Persians, established the mighty Achaemenid Empire, stretching from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean. This was followed by the Parthians to 47 BCE to 224 CE and the Sassanids to 24 to 651 CE, who ruled Persia for centuries. As these great empires rose, they often clashed with powerful enemies from the north, nomadic warriors who lived in the vast steppes. These were the people the Persians called Turanians. While Iran was home to great cities and empires, the land to its north, Turan, was a vast expanse of open grasslands, deserts, and mountains. But who were the Turanians? Were they real people, or just a mythical enemy created in Persian literature? In Persian tradition, Turan refers to the lands beyond the Oxus River, modern Amu Darya, in what is now Central Asia. The people of this region were often depicted as fierce warriors, expert horsemen, and sworn enemies of the Iranians. But who exactly were the Turanians? Historians believe the name Turan may have originally referred to Indo-Iranian steppe tribes, such as the Sakas, Scythians, Massagedae, and Dahe, who lived in Central Asia around 1000 BC to 500 CE. The Sakas, also known as the Scythians, were expert horsemen and archers. They were feared across the ancient world for their hit-and-run tactics and mastery of mounted warfare. Even the mighty Achaemenid Persian Empire had to fight these steppe warriors in the 6th century BC under King Darius I. However, over time, the identity of the Turanians may have changed. By the early medieval period 5th–10th century CE, new waves of Turkic and Mongolic tribes such as the Gayturks, Uyghurs, and later the Mongols began dominating Central Asia. Many historians believe that these later nomadic groups adopted the Turanian identity, carrying on the legacy of the ancient Indo-Iranian steppe tribes. Unlike the Persians, who built cities and centralized states, the Turanians followed a nomadic lifestyle, moving with their herds across the vast Eurasian plains. Their society was based on tribal alliances, mounted warfare, and raiding, a stark contrast to the empire-building traditions of the Iranians. In Persian mythology, the conflict between Iran and Turan was personified by two legendary figures, Rustam, the great Persian warrior, and Afrasiab, the king of Turan. But was this just myth, or did real battles between these two civilizations take place? In the next section, we'll explore the legendary and historical battles between Iran and Turan. The greatest source of the Iran-Turan conflict is not a historical record but an epic poem, the Shahnameh, written by the Persian poet Ferdowsi in the 10th century CE. This masterpiece of Persian literature tells the story of Iran's mythical past, where Persian heroes fought against their archenemies, the Turanians. But how much of this is legend, and how much is based on real history? The Shahnameh, meaning the Book of Kings, is the national epic of Persia. It weaves together myths, history, and legendary battles, presenting the struggle between Iran and Turan as a cosmic battle between civilization and chaos. One of the greatest Persian heroes of the Shahnameh is Rustam, a mighty warrior who defended Iran against countless enemies. His most famous battles were against the Turanians, particularly their king, Afrasiab. One of the most tragic stories in the Shahnameh is the battle between Rustam and Sohrab, a young warrior from Turan. Unknowingly, Rustam kills Sohrab in battle, only to realize too late that Sohrab was his own son. This story reflects the deep, almost brotherly connection between the Iranians and the Turanians, despite their bitter rivalry. On the Turanian side, the greatest warrior was Afrasiab, a cunning and powerful king. He launched multiple invasions into Iran, often winning battles and even capturing Iranian cities. But like all villains in epics, his fate was sealed. He was eventually defeated and killed by the Persians. While these stories are legendary, they reflect a deeper historical reality. The constant wars between Persian empires and steppe nomads shaped Iranian history. From the Scythians to the Huns, and later the Turks and Mongols, the Iranian world was in a continuous struggle with the nomads of Central Asia. But how much of this legendary conflict was real? In the next section, we'll explore the historical Iran-Turan wars, the battles between the Persian empires and the nomadic warriors of Central Asia. Beyond the myths of the Shahnameh, history records real battles between Iranian empires and the nomadic warriors of Central Asia. For over 1,000 years, Persian kings fought against steppe raiders from the Scythians and the Massagetæ to the Hephthalites and the early Turks. These wars were not just about territory but about survival itself. The first great clash between Iran and Turan occurred during the reign of Cyrus the Great r. 550 to 530 BCE, the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus expanded Persian rule across the Near East, but to the northeast, he faced a formidable enemy, the Massagetæ, a powerful Scythian confederation. The Massagetæ were nomadic warriors who fought on horseback, using swift cavalry and deadly archery to harass their enemies. Cyrus led a campaign deep into Central Asia, but according to Greek historian Herodotus, he was defeated and killed in battle by Queen Tomyris, the ruler of the Massagetæ. A few decades later, Darius I r. 520 to 2486 BCE led another campaign against the Scythians in the Black Sea region. However, the Scythians avoided direct battle, retreating deeper into the steppe. Unable to force a decisive victory, Darius was forced to withdraw. Fast forward nearly 1,000 years, and the struggle continued. By the 5th century CE, the Persian world was ruled by the Sassanid Empire to 24-2651 CE. One of their most dangerous enemies was the Hephthalites, or White Huns, a Central Asian people who invaded Iran and even defeated the mighty Persian king Perros I in battle. The Hephthalites not only defeated Perros I, but they also took control of large parts of eastern Iran and Afghanistan. The Persian Empire was humiliated and forced to pay tribute until King Khosrow I, 531 to 579 CE, later launched a counterattack, finally crushing the Hephthalites with the help of the Western Turks. With the rise of Islam in the 7th century CE, the Persian world changed forever. The Arab conquest ended the rule of the Sassanids, but the Iran-Turan conflict did not stop. Instead, new powers emerged, this time the Turkic empires. By the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks, a powerful nomadic group from Central Asia, swept into Persia, conquering the region and blending their culture with Persian traditions. What was once a battle between enemies became a fusion of civilizations, as the Turks embraced Persian language, art, and administration. The struggle between Iran and Turan was more than just a series of wars. It shaped the history, culture, and identity of both Persians and Central Asians. While the battles eventually ended, the echoes of this ancient rivalry can still be seen today in the languages, traditions, and myths of these regions. Beyond battles and legends, the Iran-Turan conflict had a lasting cultural impact. From language and literature to architecture and traditions, the rivalry between these civilizations shaped much of the Persian and Central Asian worlds. But over time, enemies became neighbors, and their cultures blended in unexpected ways. Despite their ancient rivalry, Persians and the peoples of Central Asia influenced each other linguistically. After the Turkic migration into Persia and Central Asia in the 11th century CE, many Turkic rulers adopted Persian as the language of administration and poetry. The Seljuks, the Timurids, and even the Ottomans used Persian in their royal courts, and Persian poets like Rumi, Hafez, and Saadi became influential across the Islamic world, including in Turkic-speaking regions. Even today, Turkic languages like Uzbek, Kazakh, and even Turkish contain many Persian loanwords, showing how deeply intertwined these cultures became. The Iran-Turan cultural fusion also extended to architecture. Persian engineers and artisans introduced their designs to Central Asian cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva, while Turkic rulers brought new influences to Persian lands. The great cities of Samarkand and Bukhara, once part of Persian civilization, later became centers of Turkic and Mongol rule, but their architecture remained distinctly Persian. Over time, Persian and Central Asian myths blended. The Turkic epic of Alpatunga shares similarities with the Persian stories of Afrasiab, suggesting that these ancient enemies were actually different versions of the same warrior. Even during the Mongol Empire, Persian scholars like Rashid al-Din worked in Mongol courts, documenting the histories of both the Iranian and Turanian worlds. This shows how, over time, the old divisions between Iran and Turan faded into cultural exchange. Though the ancient Iran-Turan conflict belongs to history, its echoes remain today. The cultural, linguistic, and even political divisions between Iran and its northern neighbors Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan reflect a deep past of both rivalry and connection. But in the end, Iran and Turan were never just enemies. They shared traditions, festivals like Nowruz in Turkic lands, and a long history of interaction that shaped both civilizations. The Iran-Turan conflict was once one of the greatest rivalries in history, but over time, it became something more, a story of cultural exchange, shared heritage, and the blending of civilizations. Today, the descendants of both Iranians and Turanians live side by side, connected by a history that is far more complex than just war. So the next time you hear about the legendary battles of Rustam and Afrasiab, remember they were not just enemies, they were two sides of a shared history,